Good morning, everyone, and welcome along to one of the most legendary motor circuits in the whole of the world. That is the Nürburgring Castle, and we are, of course, therefore at the Nürburgring for TCR Europe, the second half of the season kicking off. And it's qualifying coming up for you this morning before race 1 this afternoon and race 2 on Sunday lunchtime. Thank you very much for joining us here at the Nürburgring. We've got cars out on circuit, and you may well have heard many stories of weather about this place, but today and the weekend looks beautiful. 24 degrees track temperature right now. It's only, 10 o'clock in the morning. And although it says 15 degrees air temperature, it feels a lot hotter when you're in the direct sun, which most of this circuit is. There isn't really any trees around the Grand Prix track to cover up and create shade. It's really around the Nordschleife itself where the trees really feature. And so with that kind of track temperature relatively high and increasing and air temperature quite low, there will be some caution over this first couple of laps to make sure you don't damage the tyres by asking too much of them too early. So everyone creeping around the 3.1 mile circuit. Should take just over 2 minutes to do a lap. And we did see a very mixed bag of performances in the 2 free practice sessions that were held yesterday in very similar conditions, so teams that should have really good data as to exactly how their cars are performing around here. Relatively sweeping, I suppose, as a circuit. There's not too many big braking zones, one of which, of course, is into turn 1, another of which is into the hairpin at the back of the circuit, and then into the chicane as we come up to here. Now, TCR Europe has never been to the Nürburgring, the first time for the series here. It's also the first time really using this layout for TCR outside of both TCR International World Championship, but also TCR Europe. Of course, TCR Germany have raced here many times. And Mehdi Benani then sets out on a part of the circuit he'll know well when he raced in the World Touring Car Championship. But here you do a little bit different. I thought he was actually going to go to the left-hand side there, because that is the original and the old style chicane that they use for the 24-hour configuration of the circuit, which the World Touring Car Cup have raced on since, I think, 2014. And now into the arena section of the circuit. Then back onto the part of which they will know. And the next couple of corners is more familiar to those that raced back in the day. The old grandfathers of our championship, such as Mehdi Benani, such as Tom Coronel. You see, even on his first flying lap, Mehdi Benani still weaving around, trying to get a bit of temperature into the tyres, but subtly moving around. Coronel in the pits, hasn't gone out onto circuit yet. We do have a new Audi in our field this weekend. Lucas Stolarczyk is at the moment mid-pack, and he joins us from TCR Europe, Eastern Europe, sorry, as Dusan Borkovic heads out onto circuit. So there might just be a different strategy here from the Audis. Go back into pit lane and take the front tyres off, which have been brought up to temperature. The rear tyres not necessarily doing so much, would not necessarily have as much temperature. So then what you do is you go into the pits, you take the front tyres off, you swap them with the rears, and then you go and do another warm-up lap. But what that does do is it loses you ultimate track time, ultimate rolling time. Plenty of cars, though, in the pits doing that. All of the Hondas, by the looks of things. PSS in the foreground. We did not see Viktor Davidovsky in Spa-Francorchamps last time out, but he's back with, or in his team. No problems travelling this time. And it was Franco Girolami, in fact, his teammate, who was the fastest in free practice yesterday. Behind them, the 3 Brutal Fish cars of Martin Rieber, Isidro Callejas, and Jack Young. And now Mehdi Benani, the first man, I think, on circuit, with no traffic ahead of him, sets off about trying to get a better lap. His lap time actually wasn't that bad on the first lap. 5 seconds off where he would ultimately want to be. It's a bit difficult to know with the kind of practice performances who had the new tyre on and who had old tyres on. not a huge amount of use for this Nürburgring GP circuit over the last couple of months. Does look a bit green still. Four-wheel drifting from Mehdi Banani there. It's not got a huge amount of grip in it. And maybe this is just a combination also of the tyres that we use versus the tyres that they use in the GT World Challenge GT Championship that have just been out on the circuit for the last hour and a half. They've laid down all their rubber, and perhaps our rubber not necessarily sticking to that particularly well. Up through the Schumacher S's, nice and flat curbs you can use there. Looks pretty easy in a touring car. It's very much more on the edge on the GT cars that have just vacated the circuit. And there is a lot about this circuit where you are always monstering the curbs. The curbs are very, very forgiving. They're very motorbike and F1 friendly. We had a Grand Prix here last October. And now the other difference to this circuit, this layout, when you come here for the Nürburgring Nordschleife, this chicane at the top of the hill is much, much faster. We're using the tighter Formula One style chicane for this weekend, so bigger braking zone and much more monstering of curves. Over the line, Nicolas Bart's second position behind Michael Ashkenar, who set the pace at a 2:08.573. Now let's not forget that anybody inside the top 12, their times won't count for this session. This session is literally to get yourself into the top 12. Those times will then get scrapped, and we will keep those from 13th downwards in those positions for the two races that we've got coming up for you. But from 12th upwards, we then go into Q2, and we establish the two grids for race 1 and race 2. Slightly different to how other championships do it, and actually kind of how touring cars have been doing it since, certainly since I got involved back in the 2009-2010. Just a reminder on the championship at the moment, Michael Ashkenar is our championship leader by 30 points, and you get 40 points for a race win. So it shows just how much of a gap he has, even though he also has dropped all of his scores. We do have drop scores in the championship this year, and therefore, because Ashkenar missed Zandvoort, he will be dropping those worst scores, those zeros, whereas everybody else around him has competed in the full season, and therefore will choose to drop the worst scores, the scores that they've driven in, but maybe not got a good result. So, for instance, for Franco Girolami, who sits in second position in the championship, that is race 1 in Slovakia, where he only scored 7 points. And then he's got an 18-point score both in Belgium and in Paul Ricard. So he is going to be dropping, at present, 22 extra points to Michael Ashkenar, which gives Michael Ashkenar not a 30-point lead, but a 52-point lead at the head of the standards. It's a little bit confusing. It makes more sense when we get to the tail end of the championship. But the reason for that is because we've got clashes with our World Championship, or World Touring Car Cup, I should say, not a championship. And those clashes mean that for those that are competing in both championships, the likes of Coronel, the likes of Michael Ashkenar, and Ashkenar, of course, also doing the Electric Touring Car Championship, it might not be possible to do the full Touring Car TCR Europe Championship, and therefore having the drop scores allows you to miss ones. Originally, it looked as though Michael Ashkenar would have to miss 2 rounds, Zandvoort and Spa, but then a change in the timetables for the WTCR meant that Ashkenar and Coronel could race at Spa at the end of July. However, now WTCR brought out a new calendar, which means that they might have to miss another round further down the line. So, interesting to see how that all plays out. Here is Isidro Carreras and Jack Young in the Brutal Fish Hondas. Isidro Carreras looks quite far up the exhaust pipe of Jack Young here. Perhaps not as close or too close. Klim Gavrilov is our fastest man at the moment. Although I think, has he had his time eclipsed by Borkovic? Yes, he has, just happened just now. But I have to say, I'm very impressed by the Russian. Very, very impressive run, both at Spa as well. And looking really good here. It looks like the team have got a great handle on the Audi. It's the older RS3. We've got a new version in the paddock. The new version also being run in the WTCR, but the older version being run here. And very small team, VLC, absolutely nailing the setup at Spa, and I think they've probably kept that setup for when they arrived here. And Gavrilov at the moment is second, ahead of Coronel, and just behind Dusan Borkovic. So it looks very, very good for Audis right now, but we haven't seen too much of the hand from Honda. So here comes Franco Girolami, fastest in practice so far, towing his teammate around. And where does Girolami go? Not a great lap, I don't think. 12th position only, yeah. So he's got Viktor Davidovsky behind him, and actually Davidovsky's gone fractionally faster than him. Davidovsky 11th, Girolami 12th. So that's on the bubble, really, isn't it? And with Jack Young just behind, you'd expect him to be improving. The Hyundais from Sebastian Loeb Racing were very, very strong as well. And so it's going to be a fight to get into the top 12. And now, with others improving, Davidovsky drops to 12th and Girolami to 13th. Taufluig, Hommler, Ashkener, Clare, Longerveld. It was Jack Young who did improve up to 6th. Kayes, Jakim Galash up in 4th position. That's a very good time. Gavrilov, Borkovic. Now, the other thing that might be going on here, and it's not something that we really know too much about, they could, and you can see new tyres there waiting for Taufluig and Banani, they could have been using old tyres, scrub tyres from practice, in that first attempt on a lap, just to see whether they can do it without needing to use a set of tyres. Now, Borkovic, fastest with a 2.8.007. He is 0.777 of a second from the bubble. Now, how much does new tyres give you versus old tyres? These are the calculations that the teams will be making now. This is what Borkovic should be looking at. If I stay in the pits, can I still qualify? And I would suggest the answer would be no. Looking at the performance and the times from Girolami and Free Practice 2, different track conditions, different ambient temperature. But I think they will all have to go again. In comes Coronel. Coronel in 3rd position. Busy weekend for Tom. Obviously the Dutch Grand Prix happening just 3 hours away from here at Zandvoort. And he is an expert pundit on the TV coverage of it. And of course, just as being a Dutchman generally, wants to be there, wants to see and feel the atmosphere that looks so incredible. The Circuit Park Zandvoort done an incredible job. And so Coronel rushing from here back to Zandvoort, or close by, to do the TV coverage, to come back here to do our races. So it was a very, very busy weekend. Did 2 free practices yesterday and went straight back to the studio to present the evening Friday night motorsport show that they have in Holland, and then is back here in a car qualifying. Presumably might spend a little bit of time here between qualifying and the race, just because, well, a little bit of a break would be useful. And then as soon as the first race is done, I imagine he'll be heading back up to Holland. And no helicopter yet, but waiting to see the Coronel DHL helicopter land outside the Nordschleife. Mikael Ashkener, 3rd position, championship leader. Missed around, as I already said. Took a double victory in Spa last time out to add to his victory in Slovakia in the first round of the championship. And has only missed the podium once in Paul Ricard Race 1. Other than that, all the races he's participated in, all 6 of them, he has been on the podium. We've got 6 more races to come for you this season, with Nürburgring this weekend, then we go to Monza in a few weekends' time, and then we will finish our championship back with the SRO Championship, who are we with this weekend, in Barcelona in the middle of October. And that will be year done for TCR Europe. 7 weekends. But we are really only halfway through the championship, so whilst it feels like it's been a long time since Slovakia, and it has in terms of time, it actually hasn't been in terms of amount of races. Right, cars are back on track then. This is probably a bit more representative of what we're going to see. The Peugeots are already on a push. Teddy Claret looks like he might get himself to the head of the standings. He is the second of the Claret brothers, fastest by 0.2 of a second in the Peugeot. Behind him is his brother also on a lap, yes, but can only manage 15th. So we'll need to push and go again. Jimmy Claret sits 7th in the championship, and Teddy Claret sits 13th in the championship, although it's Teddy who has had the more starring performances, I would say, and then the worst luck. Teddy winning race 1 in Paul Ricard, Jimmy Claret winning the reverse grid race 2, but Teddy also taking the 3rd position last time out at Spa. Here's Nicolas Bart. Teammates looking good in the Come To You Racing stable, but Borkovic and Coronella, the head of the field. Bart only in 15th position and might not trouble the Peugeot here. Comes to the line, and it is 2nd position, so he found a bit of time in the 3rd sector. But 0.186 back, and I can see that hole between the two of them being quickly filled by others. Has he got the tyres to go for a 2nd lap? Here's Mehdi Benani. Benani's down in 17th. I don't think he was running on new tyres. Monsters the curbs. Very, very good in sector 1, but he's lost 0.3 of a second in sector 2. Maybe there's a mistake there in the 2nd sector of the lap for the Moroccan. But he's super, super patient around this final turn. It goes on forever, and you just want to light up the front wheels, but of course that's not the way to do it. And Mehdi only goes 6th. I think he could be in danger here. He's got 1 extra lap over Claret and Bart, but he is only, well, he's 0.4 back, basically. Here's Jimmy Claret, needs to improve on that time last time, following his brother, but he's half a second back in the middle sector. Half a second back from his brother, who's following around. Now, this surely will pull him out into the top 12. Must be good enough for that, surely, for Jimmy Claret. Yes, but only 9th. And that little error through the chicane meant he did not improve on the final sector of the lap. Felice Jelmini comes across the line. Dusan Borkovic behind, goes fastest of all. 2.5 of a second faster than the Peugeot. Looking really good for Audi this weekend. Jelmini, I think, must be starting a lap because Jelmini's still down in 15th position. Here's Nils Langeveld. Fastest of anybody through the 1st sector by half a second. Whoa, Langeveld is really strong in practice. He needs to get his championship underway. He's had a couple of podium positions, but he's missing out on the elusive win so far. And as a Dutchman, this will be a circuit very well known to him. It's nice and local to Holland. Not quite as fast as Girolami, who sets the pace in the middle sector of the lap, but the Hyundai rides the curbs well through the final sector. The 2 PSS boys come across the line. Girolami 3rd, Victor Davidovsky 4th. So they're through at the moment, and Benani drops down to 9th position. Nils Langeveld over the line, and he goes fastest by 0.35 of a second. With just 16 seconds remaining now, those that come across the line are on basically their last laps. Who's fastest in the pack? Who needs to push? Langeveld 3.5 tenths faster than anybody else. Got that a little bit wrong, had to straighten up the car, but it doesn't really need to go again. He can back off and save these tyres for another day, perhaps. Perhaps they'll reappear in race 2. Perhaps they'll reappear in practice in our next races in Monza. It's also possible. Checker flag is out. Gavrilov picks it up, 15th. Poussier picks it up in 19th spot. Sorry, Gavrilov 5th, I should say. Jakub Galash, only 10th position. So I think Galash would put his new tyres on early in the session. He's in at the moment, but there are people behind him that could steal his thunder. Keep an eye out. Taufluik is out. Jimmy Claret is out. Isidro Calles and Jack Young are both out at the moment. Claret goes to the pits. Here are the two PSS Hondas running close together. Sorry, Brutal Fish Hondas. Coronel lurking in the background. Coronel's safe. He's all right. He's 3rd position. Doesn't matter. Honda's looking like they're struggling, don't they? 0.5, half a second slower in the first sector of the lap. I think Calles looks to be the faster of the two here. Can they get themselves into the top 12? Over the line, with Jack Young first. Jack Young only 11th, Calles 8th. Coronel improves to 2nd position, knocking Borkovic down. We've still got people who haven't taken the checkered flag, most notably Banani and Homola. Jakub Galash may well hold on to staying in the top 12. Here's Martin Rieber. Martin Rieber is on a lap. I can tell you Banani is not. Banani's not going to improve here. Has Rieber got enough pace to get himself into the top 12? No, absolutely not. It might be an improvement in terms of position for the race. Suddenly, Hyundai are nowhere. I don't think any of the Seb Loeb racing cars are going to go into Q2. Over the line, Martin Rieber 18th, takes the checkered flag. Felice Ielmini's in the pits, 17th only for the Italian. Banani and Homola are out on track, but they're nowhere. They're going to have to come into the pits. They are not on a push lap, and Banani, therefore, is going to miss out on Q2. 3rd in our championship, Mehdi Banani, with 1 win in the 2nd race in Slovakia, the 1st ever win for that new Elantra. But here, they are not looking happy at all. We've got an older style Hyundai as well in the field. Well, that's actually, no, sorry, yes, thank you very much, TV director. Nils Langeveld is in and fastest, so you can't blame it on the car. He is our only Seb Loeb racing car to go through. Banani doesn't, Taufluik doesn't, 15th. Homola is in the older Hyundai, he's 14th position. Jakub Galash, his teammate though, has got himself in. So Galash in 12th spot. Mehdi Banani will be getting out of that Sebastian Loeb racing car very disappointedly. Here is the provisional result from qualifying 1. Fastest of all, Nils Langeveld. 2nd fastest, Coronel. Borkovic making it look good for Audi. Mikael Ajkana in the Cupra. Then Girolami, Klim Gavrilov, Viktor Davidovsky, Teddy Claret in the Peugeot. Isidro Calles did get through in 9th. Bart 10th. Jack Young in the Honda in 11th position. And Jakub Galash 12th. Then those that didn't qualify. Homola, Mehdi Banani, Jimmy Claret, Felice Ielmini, Martin Rieber, and then the 2 older Cupras run by Claret Sport, and our new boy, Lucas, finding himself a little outpaced from the step up into TCR Europe. But that's what this TCR pyramid is all about. The WTCR, obviously the pinnacle of it, and you gain experience by participating in the TCR Europe Championship, and before you do that, you're in TCR UK or even TCR Australia if you really have ambitions to come across the pond. And I think I don't know if we're on the channels this morning, but certainly this afternoon we'll be on TCR Europe and TCR UK channels. So hello to all of you guys watching there. It's great to see TCR blossoming around the whole of the world. Every single year, more championships pop up with bigger names and lots of TCR racing every weekend. I don't think you see it too much, actually, with these particular cars, but kind of the idea is that this car, Tom Coronel's car, could be used in like TCR Benelux, for instance, or TCR Germany in a different weekend with a different driver, with a different livery, of course, but it's effectively the same car. The idea is that you can jump into it and use it in different championships, and a team buys a single car for about 135, 140,000 euros, but then can use it in TCR Europe, TCR UK, and basically pimp it out as much as they possibly can and fill it. That's the philosophy anyway. That works very well in the world of SRO GT3, which we support here. And green flag flies for the second qualifying session. So a reminder, the man that finishes this session in 10th position will get pole position for race 2, which is our Sunday race. And the man who obviously goes fastest gets pole position for race 1. But there is also points. There's a sliding scale of points for those that qualify in the top 10 as well. So 10 points towards your championship for a pole position in this session. But the pole position for race 2, of course, being only 10th fastest, only awards you 1 championship point. So we do have a couple of cars out on track, but many sitting in the pits. The session is a lot shorter than our first one. Our first one's 15 minutes, this one is 10 minutes. And so I think what we're seeing here is cars really banking on a single run. They aren't going to get enough time in to go out lap, fast lap, pit, tyres, out lap, fast lap. There won't be enough time to do it. So we're just going to see a single run, I think, from all these guys. And therefore, as tradition states, you should wait until the end of the session, because the cars in front of you will clean the track and make the track faster. Although this never works, because there's generally cars, well, there are cars in front of them, and here comes the Hondas right now. But you kind of end up leaving the guys that are less experienced, the guys that are going to end up down in 10th position, to go out first to do the cleaning, and then you are a little bit later. Langeveld creeping forward. Coronel dropping off the jacks in the background. The two Dutchmen, I think, will be going together with 3 minutes gone of the session. Langeveld heads out. Langeveld sits 4th in the championship, but the field spread is pretty large in our championship. So Ashkenar is 30 points ahead of Girolami. Girolami is 17 ahead of Banani, and then Banani is 20 ahead of Nils Langeveld, with Coronel in 5th position, 9 back. Coronel just hasn't had the luck, has he? He's had the pace, he's always been fast, and he took victory race 1 in Zandvoort at his home circuit. But this is another circuit that he would almost consider his home circuit. Oh no, and they're going to come out right with traffic. Gavrilov's flashing his lights because he can see the two come-to-you cars coming out in front of him. I hope that just out of shot there, Coronel has got out the way of Gavrilov, because this will be Gavrilov's only push lap. Oh, Borkovic, what was that? Huge lock up into the first corner. Right, now he's going to have to calm down and go again. Do not push on this lap. You've already mucked it up. Do not take anything out the tyres. There is enough time for a second push lap. But that was a very, very odd moment. Looked as though the rears locked up before the fronts. And then the front's locked up as well. And that was the start of Borkovic's lap, so he will he'll have to reset. Borkovic had a horrible time in Spa, picked up 10 solitary points from a maximum of 90. Ashkenar taking a double victory. Didn't get the pole position though, so didn't do the full maximum. He was on the second row of the grid. I think I was saying a little bit earlier, this track hasn't really been used much over the last month and a half, because the circuit itself has been used as a rescue centre for the horrible flooding and landslides that we had around the area here. In the Eifel Mountains, and so the rescue effort was coordinated in the paddock of the Nürburgring, meaning that many events across August had to be cancelled. I don't know whether this is the first event back, but certainly you can see how green the circuit is, how kind of light grey it is. There's not a lot of rubber down on it at all. But it is a circuit that generally gets pretty heavy use. Ashkina climbs up the hill through the chicane. This is kind of now the back of the paddock. Some really nice cambered corners just to throw the car into, and the car nicely sticks. No real worry about track limits around here, just the chicane where you can probably jump over, but otherwise there's grass and gravel, the old school way of keeping cars on track. Nice and clean over the curbs. You can see the car didn't jump around too much, rode them beautifully, he hit them correctly. And now through the final turn for Michael Ashkina. This is a push lap, so this is the first opportunity for a real representative time from the Spaniard. He goes second only to Teddy Claret's pace that was set a little bit earlier on. Over the line for Girolami, who goes fastest of all, with Viktor Davidovski behind him in fourth position. Girolami at 2:06.788. That's a great lap from the Argentine, who locks up into the first turn, so probably not going to have a chance to go again. Will he have the tyres even? Isidro Calles behind has gone up into second position. Claret third, Ashkina fourth, Davidovski fifth, Jack Young only sixth position after his lap. Gavrilov in seventh spot. And we haven't seen representative times yet from Jakim Galash, Borkovic, Bart, Langeveld and Coronel. Ashkina is out, he's put the indicators on, so this is not going to be a great qualifying performance from Ashkina. 8/10 down from Girolami already, and Langeveld now starts his lap. He's going to have a lot of traffic to contend with. Just going to keep an eye out to see if anybody else is going to go for that second lap. Borkovic, who we saw lock up, I think has gone for it. He did a 58.9 in the first sector though. That's miles away from Girolami's 58.2. Galash has come across the line to improve up into sixth position. I fancy Jakim Galash for pole position on race 2, you know. See how it all pans out. Down the hill now for Nils Langeveld, fastest man in our Q1. That doesn't matter though, because that time was scrapped. But he is now the fastest man through the first sector in qualifying 2. This is his only opportunity for a lap. Any mistake now means that Langeveld will end up at the tail of our qualifying field. He's got to get this right. He's aiming for a 2:06.788. Looks good so far. Riding the curves perfectly. Waiting for that second sector beam to be cut. Is he still on course? Coronel up to fourth position ahead of him. But Coronel, yeah, only fourth. Langeveld so tight here. It's going to be really tight between himself and Girolami, but Calles has gone faster. In his second lap, Isidro Calles has managed to get himself up into the pole position spot. But could that be taken away from him as Langeveld comes round the final turn? Looks really, really good in the Hyundai. The only man to get the Hyundai into Q2. Over the line, and it's only third position. 0.085 of a second back from Isidro Calles, who's taken the pole position. Less than a tenth of a second separate our top 3 competitors. And now who else is on a lap? Nicolas Bart is still pushing. Jakim Galash is still pushing as well. Galash could improve himself. He could find himself actually ahead of this man. Ashkina isn't on a lap, unless he started one now. He might have done a cool-down lap and then gone again. It does look like the body language of the car is, I'm pushing. So this might not be over yet. Have they got a second lap in the tyre? Ashkina has gone faster in the first sector. This is by no means over yet. Callejas from Girolami from Langeveld. Teddy Claret in 4th position in the Peugeot. And then Coronel has taken the checkered flag, and he will start no higher than 5th position. Gavrilov 7th, Borkovic and Bart 11th and 12th. Not good from Come To You Racing. It's slightly fading on this second session. Callejas getting out the way of Ashkana. At the moment, Jack Young is on the pole position for the second race of our weekend, and his teammate, his engineer, will be on the radio saying, do not push anymore, do not improve, because there's nobody behind you that can steal away that pole position for race 2. An opportunity for a win, that would be on Sunday here at the Nürburgring. Michael Ashkana round the final turn. It's going to be an improvement from him. He's only 6th position right now, but I don't think it's good enough for pole position. To the line he goes. 5th only. Just 1 position improved and knocks Coronel down to 6th position. Galash didn't improve. He stayed in 8th spot. Ahead of Viktor Davidovsky in 9th and Jack Young in 10th position. An all Honda front row we will have for our Sunday race with Davidovsky and Jack Young. Borkovic missing out and will start 11th for both races. Bart 12th for both races. Disappointing for both of those drivers who looked so much stronger in Q1 than they have ended up being in Q2. But I have to say, what a surprise. We didn't even see any of the lap because it was such a surprise from Isidro Callejas, a Spaniard, the youngest man in the field. And that is his first pole position by a country mile as well. Best result, row 3 so far. And Callejas taking the pole position by just 3/400ths of a second from Franco Girolami, and then Nils Langeveld 800ths of a second back. Then a bit of a gap to Teddy Claret in 4th. Michael Ashkana will start row 3 alongside Tom Coronel, and then Klim Gavrilov in 7th. Jakim Galash, impressive from the Czech in 8th position. Then Viktor Davidovsky and Jack Young make it an all Honda front row for our second race. And as I say, Dusan Borkovic and Nils Langeveld missing out on getting themselves into that top 10, that all-important top 10. Well, well, well. Spaniard Isidro Callejas with his first pole position. Engineered and driver mentored by Pepe Oriola. And it really has stepped up here. These are the highlights of qualifying from Q2. Cars heading out onto circuit with Coronel, one of the later runners. I think he did a single lap shakedown on old tyres and then put those new tyres on for a single run, just to get himself into Q2. Nicola Bart looked pretty good in the Audi. All the Audis looked pretty good in Q1, to be honest. But it was Nils Langeveld who was the fastest man, taking a chunk of curb and more there as he headed down the hill. Teddy Claret getting himself in, towing his brother Jimmy, with Jimmy only managing, I think, 15th in the end. The two PSS drivers running together, Viktor Davidovsky being towed around by Franco Girolami, and they both made it into Q2. Borkovic in Q2 as well, but made an error into the braking zone the very first corner. And I think probably flat spotted the tyre to a point where he couldn't really use it any longer. And that's why he missed out. The break between Q1 and Q2 then, and cars heading back out onto circuit. Teammates towing each other around, Jack Young and Isidro Callejas. That was a big old slide for Michael Ashkana. Some time was lost there, that's for sure. And there's Borkovic locking what looked like all 4 tyres. I think he had a braking problem, and so he couldn't get himself up into the top 10. Girolami giving it the beans, but still just missing out on the top spot, because without any of us watching, Isidro Callejas sneaked himself ahead of Girolami and sneaked himself ahead of Nils Langeveld, who was flying the flag for the Elantra Isidro Caeso is on the pole position for today.